All right.
Is anyone brave and go first with their questions?
I can start us off if that's all right. We pretty much just have a bunch of questions about like the Weaver. Well, I mean, I guess first of all is like a question I personally have is like if we have a pretty big form, it's 4 pages and like 140 fields. So if there are like, say there's like multiple places where you're going to have the same person put their first, middle, and last name, do you want to be using increasing increments of so would you do like username first and then username first 1, username first 2 for the different fields, or would you use just username first and have it fill in like every field with the same input, if that makes sense? I don't know, I probably worded that terribly, but is it like, are you using one variable and having that input be put into multiple fields, or should we have a different variable for every field even though it's the same input?
So let's see. I can take this one. So this is a difficult-ish question. The answer is you use the same variable, but the issue is that PDFs. So if you're using a docx, which I assume you're not, since you already have like 4 pages. If you're using a docx, yeah. If you were using a docx, it'd be the same variable. It'd be a lot easier. If you're using a PDF, PDF fields, like the fillable fields, can't have the same name. And they're like the same label, so you can't give it the exact same variable. So you just do. So in your case, it would be like person name, name first, __1, which is a different. It's like it's a different name for the label, but the Weaver like already can tell, like it can tell like __1, __2 are the same variable like in your generated DocAssembly interview. And it treats all exactly the same. It's just so the PDF knows that, okay, these are 2 different labels.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's how you do those.
When we pushed it through the Weaver, we found that it was like bolding and auto-generating questions for just the like user _name _first with no number, but then it wouldn't pull any of the ones with like the 2 or the 3 at the end. And so we'd have to like manually assign those to a question.
Well, first you make sure you have the underscores, and 2, that's 2 underscores and then the number, and 2, you're not supposed to have anything unique or any unique question or any unique variable for that. __1 should have the same variables, __2, etc. So you don't want unique variables for those because they're all going to have the same value in the end.
Yeah. So would the error just like with them not being recognized as bolded be that we put only 1 underscore before the number instead of 2, do you think?
That might be.
That is definitely it, because we treat 1 underscore differently than 2, because otherwise it's just 1 underscore is, that's how we like separate words in the same variable. And so we like the Weaver can't tell if you mean to separate a word or if you're trying to do 2 extra at the end.
Okay. Because that made things really weird for us when we got to the end, because we had like certain fields that we wanted for the question to be grouped up, like being pulled separately. So we'd have like first and middle name, but then the last name would be like bolded and pulled separately. So we'd have to like try and reorder it, and it was all wonky, but that should help smooth that out. And then I think the only other question we have with the Weaver, sorry that I'm kind of just like going back to back to back, but if like pretty much we just had like 2 of us watching one other person run the thing through the Weaver, is there any way that we could like save it halfway through and like just pass it to someone else that each of us can like get practice pushing, like actually doing the Weaver stuff? Or is there not really a way to like take the Weaver document like midway through us editing the questions and the ordering and the naming and stuff and like give it to someone else?
I think right now there isn't a way, but actually that sounds like not a bad idea. We could make a shareable, I mean, that doesn't need to be confidential. We could, right, Quentin? We could make that a shareable interview. I mean, will the share button work for it? No, it doesn't use assembly line. So
the idea here is like to hand it off to someone else to finish working on it.
Yeah.
When you started
just because ours is so long that we found that we were spending like an hour and a half just watching other people like typing in the names of the questions and stuff like that.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, another thing you could do is it one page, the PDF, or is it a lot longer than?
It's 4 pages.
You could always divide it in half too. That's another solution. You'd have to do more work to put it back together at the end.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. So would you combine the interviews together at the end, or like how would you patch it back together?
You would combine the interviews and you would combine the
PDFs.
yeah, I guess
I
that
honestly think that would
safest
become a
thing to do.
mess.
it could end up being a little bit tricky. Yeah.
I don't think it would be super hard to like add the like share button that we have in assembly line also to the Weaver, because essentially like the interviews that you will eventually have, like people can do exactly what you're saying there. They can like stop and there's an option to share it where other people can go and like see what these you've filled out, and essentially that's exactly what you'll need, but just in the Weaver. And so that would be definitely doable for us to add, I think.
Yeah, we could definitely add it. That's definitely true.
But probably not something you're going to see or get the benefit of right now. So, so the other thing you could think about is you also think about sharing control of your computer over screen if everyone wanted to watch.
Like
but the nice thing is once you get it through the Weaver, that'll sort of be one and done.
Yeah.
Assuming you get all the variables the way you want.
Okay. I think that's it for questions for me, at least that I can think of now, but thank you for the all the answers.
I think we have another question there. So basically we went through the Weaver, and we downloaded the document, and then how would we go back to the Weaver again to make changes? Because I think we couldn't go back once we downloaded it.
So,
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask Donna and team, do you mean the Weaver or where you were labeling the fields in the PDF?
Since we had so many extra random fields and stuff because we misnamed the variables, like we went through, got to the end, saw that everything was like in a jumbled mess at the end, and just wanted to like download the package, put it in the playground, test that it actually worked before reordering, and then we found we couldn't actually go back into the Weaver.
Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to.
So if you have a new PDF with new values, if that's what you're talking about, you need to run it through the Weaver again. It doesn't adjust. You can't change midstream. If you want to go back and change answers that you already have made, there are ways to edit the answers. You have a review screen. You can press on the review button and you can edit the answers you have in that existing interview. I think other than that, I mean, you can always edit the interview itself. So like worst comes to worst, you've got the code, right? Like the code is very changeable. So do any of those options help? Oh, sorry, David, go ahead.
I was just going to say it's helpful to think about the Weaver not as like a one-stop no code place where you do all the edits in your interview. Rather, it's the thing to sort of get you over that first hurdle, which is just sort of get you someplace where then you have some code, and then you can go about and you can hack at the code to get what you really want. So the idea is you're trying to save yourself time down the road by just getting all the variables and everything, and it does a nice first pass. So as a mental model for the Weaver, don't think about it as like the thing where you have to, the output of the Weaver doesn't have to be like your finished interview or anything. It's going to be like that first draft. And so you only need to go back to the Weaver if you want to redo your first draft. If that's like a mental model, that's helpful.
And if you don't want to go through and redo all those single underscores, you don't have to. We can show you how to put the correct value for the variable in the places where those, accidentally single underscores were, right? When you didn't do __1, you don't have to go back and redo that. We can just fix it in the interview. So depending on like how onerous the task is that you're facing, it might be better to just fix it in the interview.
Okay, so would that be on the screen before you put in the like question and sub-question where it's asking you like what type of field it's going to be and then what the like label for that field value is?
It would be in the code.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
the
on the
code
playground
is
after
the
the
editor.
output.
Okay.
So you would
But
do you would upload the package, and then probably one of us could go through and show you a couple times how that works to correct those, to
Okay.
fix the code for that, and we could do that.
It sounds like you might be best to just go through, make sure you got the naming scheme all there, because you probably have more things than just that name that show up multiple times. Go through, run it through the Weaver again, get a clean slate,
Yeah.
and then go from there. But
Okay.
yeah, just think of the Weaver as a way to like sort of get you started.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the misnaming of the variables kind of put us in a bad spot to start with, because we just were like confused with what we received at the end. We were expecting it to be like better grouped up, but we kind of self-sabotage. So I think if we run it through again with
Yeah.
like the cleaner names.
But Michelle's right. Like the worst that happens if you name things badly in the Weaver is that you have more work to do when you're editing the code. So it's
Yeah.
like a trade-off. You're doing work somewhere. The bet is that if you get the naming and everything right first off, then you do less work in the end. But if you're having to go back and redo work, then that changes the calculus.
Thank you.
They can take some practice, obviously, right? So it's totally okay to go back and redo it.
Yeah.
What we don't have, unfortunately, is a way to load what you've started and then just tweak it from there, which is not necessarily a bad thing to think about adding, but it isn't quite what our vision for this was. It's more about auto generation rather than an editing environment.
All right.
All right.
A few other people said they had questions. Do you want to ask them?
I'll hop in. So I have a question. Well, I have a few questions, but the more I'm thinking about it, I can probably just throw them into the coding help chat, because they're just kind of specific documentation questions. But I have a question about dependencies, because I was talking to Aubrey earlier, and I guess there is a shift of sorts occurring. So I need to obtain the appeals package, and I was just wondering how I would do that.
Prince might be the best person to answer, but I think he's off camera now.
Sorry, yeah, no, I'm still here. Good question. So it's not a part of the Weaver yet. Should be. I'm taking that down as a note of something to add to the Weaver. But you should essentially, after you generate your interview, let me see if I can actually get pull up an example really quick of what that might look like. This one.
And sorry to jump in. Regis actually has started and has something to work with.
I
if you
think
wanna-
for
Oh,
people who
nice,
are
okay.
familiar with it, you just add to the include block.
Yeah,
If you're familiar with that block, just to,
Yeah,
for people watching this in the future, that's what you do. But we can definitely show how that works.
I mean, yeah, no, it's really, it is just as simple as that. But I just figured I'd pull up a working interview that I believe some students did this last semester, motion to stay general, which is essentially, yeah, like just in this, like the very first include block in the interview, which will generally be the first one. You might have a metadata at first, but if not, you can just toss it above it, and it will, you just need to add DocAssembly Mass Appeals Court appeals basic questions.
Though I will say that generally you want to go from most general to most specific. So if I had done this, I might have put appeals above affidavit, because affidavit is a bit more specific than appeals, but that is a detail.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, that's,
And
and that is kind of all it is. The only other thing I would add is that the appeals questions do probably need a little bit of TLC. They're around, but there's definitely could be a lot of improvements that we could add that I've like at least been aware of. So just keep that in mind. And if you come across anything that seems like, hey, we should update this or fix this, just like make a quick issue for it or in tag. tag me or tag me just to like say like, hey, this would be an easy thing to do, and we might tackle it in between now and the next sprint or the next sprint. Yeah.
And Quinn had to jump off for another meeting. And then just some context for folks. When we're talking about including stuff, we're talking about basically referencing other repositories or bits of code that we've installed on the server. So that's why you didn't see it like pointing to GitHub or something. It's like we've taken a repo that someone's written, installed it on the server, and then it becomes something that everyone else on the server can access if they invoke it by saying include this. And that's just a way for, and so you can include other interviews, you can include other, so you can basically use code that's already been written to do stuff, just for the context for people who, that's the first time you're hearing that.
Thank you. Yeah, so I guess building off of that question then, I need to create like a dependent dropdown. So if I wanted to, let's say that exists within the appeals package, how would I go about, like, would I be able to go pull that code or like that, like a model for that documentation? I'm just a little bit.
If you wanted to customize it, you go into that repo and you pull the code. But if you want to just use what's there, you just have to invoke the variable.
Just to be clear, we don't mean pull as in pull from GitHub.
Yes.
We just mean look at the code and copy and paste. And
yeah, cut and paste.
If the question appears in your interview and you decide you want to customize it, you can hit source and you'll be able to see its code. So you can just copy and paste from there.
Yeah, but if you just want to use the boilerplate one that's already there, you just have to reference the variable so it knows to ask the question.
Thank you.
Okay, we could go next. So our issue is we're having the same issue with one field, but I think Shauna was saying that it's a form that we can't see when we're bringing it through the Weaver. I don't know if I'm
a variable field that we can't see on document. So.
You've got a you've got one hanging out there. That happens sometimes. That often happens when you try to delete a field on Documate itself. I think in our documentation we have a link for, let me just check, deleting ghost fields. Let's see.
I feel like in the Weaver, if you say something shouldn't be there, then it gives a link to the documentation. Or maybe it's just, I don't remember what version that was.
Maybe it has a link to how to delete something. I'm not sure
Yeah.
though. I don't remember that being there. Maybe it got added.
Well, that's not, I don't know if that's the error that will show up. We'll show those things if like it's corrupted, but sometimes if it's just, it's like a field with like a blank name, we'll just say, you should change the name of this field. And there is a weird public document where you can't see the name of that field.
So I remember we had a link somewhere for how to delete one of those fields, like a tool that will help you delete it. Because otherwise you need someone, if you don't have anyone with Adobe Pro, I can delete that field for you. You can just give it to me later.
Okay, because it's like '75, and then it says that this variable should be snake case or alphabetical characters, and
Alphanumeric, yeah.
all the ones that we are supposed to be using isn't like they're all snake case.
And so just to make clear to everyone, which I think is clear because people are going when they need to, Teaching Tuesday is really for you to answer questions. So if you have something else you need to jump off and do, that's fine. We do record them, but you don't have to hang out here if you're going to be able to better use your time doing something else, that's fine. But especially now at the beginning, you probably will learn a lot of stuff just by seeing what other people's questions are.
Shayna, you said that originally on Document, you couldn't see the names of fields in general, so you had to redo it?
There were already set fields, but they were all named like checkbox, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So I had
You
to
just
go through and
renamed them.
change them all, rename them.
So in future, and you might have done this and it might have still ended up the way you described it. Totally believe you, but I just want to make sure that you clicked on the options for naming the fields and said use the previous field names, use the original field names.
I did do that. Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Then you've done everything right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fair. It sounds like we should maybe try and find things, or at least I don't know if we'll be able to tell if it's like impossible to see really tiny ones, because sometimes those like generated ones, the like apostrophe number is just like randomly, it's just like some sequentially generated field, but it doesn't show up, and so maybe we should just try and tell if it wouldn't show up in documented, and so show a better error. But
my recollection was there was like a prompt on the Weaver that was like, do you see all the fields you expect to see? Or do you see?
This might show up before that one.
Yeah. Well, if it, my thinking was just like, if there was maybe there's a way to just neuter the unwanted field, right? So you could say like, yes, this field's there, but we're just gonna make it such that DocAssembly doesn't care about it. And we won't ask, we won't put it into your interview.
I think sometimes that's possible. I think sometimes the name causes an error. Am I wrong about that?
That could be it. Yeah.
So the name will cause an error if we try and generate it.
I mean, in DocAssembly itself, right? As opposed to just
it's not the right format. Yeah.
I don't know. Like, does it accept blank fields?
It's not. It's the thing is, it's not blank in the PDF, and we can map from whatever variable we have to what's in the PDF. But it might be possible to essentially, like when you load it, if it's a clearly bad field, ask, is this a useful field? But I think the issue might be there is we don't have a way to show this, and this is where in the PDF this field is. We can give you some numbers, but I don't think we have a good way to like actually show you like what the field is. It could just be if you like added it, if you just added a field and you like didn't really rename it with something, it could have that field and it could be a perfectly valid like signature field or something.
I think what to do with the field right now, it is what it is, and we can discuss kind of on a Monday deep dive what else we could do with the field. It's a good brainstorming session, but yeah.
Yeah, but either way, I guess to fix this, send it to Michelle or I, and we can try and delete it for you, Sean.
Sounds good.
Did anybody else that's recently joined have a question for Teaching Tuesday?
Lisa or Audrey, we started a bit before y'all hopped
Yeah,
in.
so we did start a little early because our stand-up ended. So if you, Lisa, what is it, Logan, if you have a question for the group, feel free to jump in, or if anybody else has another question.
I don't have a question. I am relieved and delighted that I just met a grant requirement and have now published all 5 interviews that were required. So Matt and I just put up 2 today onto a production server. So I'm just, phew, happy I have no questions.
Congrats,
I know.
Congrats.
It's due to everybody's patience, because boy, it was like learning Russian for me. So I'll just listen, and I'm sure that I have tons more to learn.
Well, that's awesome.
My celebration balloons.
Yeah, that was a quick change, Michelle.
That's right. I was ready.
I remember I was talking with Aubrey yesterday. It doesn't show up on our form, but just for the future, I was curious, like how to deal with fields that, like if there's like a big space to enter text that's like 4 lines or something, like do you just drag a big text box square over that, and then like the text doesn't, like what if it doesn't line up perfectly with the lines or something? I was just curious like how to format that in like Document when you're creating fields for a large text area.
Yeah, that was a question I also had, because I
Make a
Don't
big
know.
box for now, and in the future we can make the background white so that the lines disappear.
Okay,
But just go with what you've got for now.
thank you.
I think that actually relates to one of the other questions was about updating, because Sarah's question, she's not here anymore, updating the form, is you can, in the future, you can swap in the template, swap out the template form. So if you got all the variables and everything there, and then there's just a weird thing about the alignment or lines showing up where you don't want them to, you could then later edit the template, basically put white out effectively on those lines, and then make it just a space where the text would be, and then re-upload that.
Mhm.
As long as you don't
As
change
lo-
the variable names or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
and
as
you're
long
good.
as you don't change field names or add fields and things like that.
Well,
Um,
you
okay.
can, but you just won't have questions for things that you change. If you change
That's
it
true.
in your PDF, you need to make sure that you change it in your interview. So if you need to go in and fix something in your PDF or you missed a field, you can add them or change them. But you also have to make the corresponding change in your playground in your code. So
And that's really the takeaway message, right? Like, I mean, no matter what you do, there's always some way to change things or work. That's why we work with the code environment as opposed to sort of some no code environment where like you're limited by the design choices of someone who put together the thing. We try to have it both ways by having the Weaver do a little bit of guiding for us and then giving you the code so you can.
And if you commit, you can always go back to working code, which is exciting.
It's true.
If you commit
Always,
on
always
GitHub.
commit.
and a working template, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So if you
Just remember to include all the files. You'll be good.
yes, and that's
I'm not include all the files, select all the files on the packages page. Too many words in English.
Too many words with the collisions.
Ah, worlds collide. Okay.
Did anybody have another question they want to go over? I can go over how to push a package and make a new repo with your package if there's no other questions. I just want to make sure everybody's
Lisa, did you have
Feeling good.
anything in particular? She might not be.
Sorry, I'm here. I was trying to, my mouth is sticking. I don't have anything for stand-up or questions. I'm looking forward to Spot API session tomorrow. I received the
Oh,
background.
yeah.
Oops. So I just thought I'd check in briefly today during Teaching Tuesday just to see what was going on, or if anyone was going to mention anything more about that, just to pick up any additional background that might be helpful.
No, but I'm always. But that reminds me of something I didn't mention for folks, unfortunately not related to you, which was that if any of the Suffolk students are interested in a side gig, I have money to pay people to play Learn Hands, which is the training thing that trains Spot. So please do talk to me. But yeah, Lisa, I look forward to that. We'll see you tomorrow, and I think you have everything you need if you have the materials.
Great. Yeah. So I try to, as you always, pick up a few kernels of wisdom on some of these.
All right. So Aubrey,
okay. Sorry, I'm just pulling everything up.
you're still in my ears. I'm gonna step away for a second, get water because it's super warm here.
Oh, it's awful.
Sorry, I muted and unmuted. I was saying I've begun to dive more deeply into the terminology, like snake case and the naming conventions and all of that thing. So when I start to work with those more, I'm sure I'll have lots of questions. So I just thought I'd check in for today's session, see what I can learn. Thanks.
Awesome.
Awesome. That's the assembly line attitude. All right, I think I can share my screen. Okay, so what we're doing, or what I'm going to walk everyone through, is how to take your package that the Weaver spit out and get it into GitHub in a new repository, because we've done work with existing repositories, but when you've got something from the Weaver, it's going to be a package that's only living in your playground, and we want it to be on GitHub as a great place to save your work.
Do you happen to have the reference material, the Suffolk Lit Lab documentation open, just so we can see what that heading looks like? I'll pull it.
I
pull
do.
it up.
I'm just, I don't want to open the wrong tab. I think this is it.
Sure.
Yes, it's right here. So we're going to start at create a new repository. And it kind of continues to flow. And we're going to stop at, I think, sharing code. So it starts here. And on the menu, you go to create a new repository.
And we should think about deep linking to this video from the documentation once we have it recorded.
Oh,
That's right. It's
perfect.
somebody take a timestamp.
Well, it's hard to say because we're an hour and 15 into the entire meeting, so I'm not
Yeah.
really sure where that is.
It's okay. Well, when you see the shared screen, I'll find it. Don't worry. All right. So I've already, what has happened before this is you've come in to your playground, tapped folders, and you've uploaded a package. You would have uploaded the zip file that the Weaver spit out. And we're here, it's running, I'm ready, I've got something to start with, and I want to make sure I've saved this. So what you do is you come back into tap folders, tap packages, and we'll see a lot of the work that the Weaver's already done for us. We see that it got a name from the Weaver, it got some author information, a description, and a URL to Court Forms Online. That shows up, I think, in our information page. Is that where it goes?
I think it goes on the README.
The README, okay. The dependencies was what Regis was asking about. So it is looking to the assembly line DocAssemble. And then here is where we get the interview files. And so this is my YAML file that is right in the playground. Just going to go back really fast. Maybe not really fast. But this is my YAML file, and this is all of this juicy code lives in the YAML file. You can have multiple. So if you tap right here next to folders, those are going to be all the YAML files that could work in here. And there's different reasons that people have multiple files in there. But this one only has one. It's all running out of the same place. And so I would want to select them. So if I wanted this test one to go with it, on my computer, I hit Command and select to include it or uninclude it. So if I wanted to add another one in, that's how you would do it. Michelle, what's the button on a Microsoft?
Mac?
Mac. I have Mac. What's the other? Windows.
Control.
Control.
Windows is control.
Control
Do it again though
Windows.
to get rid of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
And then under templates is your PDF or your Word document, your docx file if you're doing one that's not a PDF. And so you want to make sure that that's also attached. So again, you can add multiple things into here. You could have more than one PDF or docx file, and keeping them separate for various reasons. You'd want to make sure that everything was selected here. So then I see this package is not yet published on your GitHub account. That is not what we want. We want to make sure everything's on GitHub because it's safekeeping and good practice. So the yellow button, you see GitHub, and I don't get a...
You don't have any
commit.
branches.
It's not going to give me an initial commit.
You write the message. This is your initial commit message. This is the first message.
So this is my first message. Oh, and I don't have any branches because it's my first time, right?
Yeah.
I haven't made a new package in so long.
Yeah.
So you're going to tell it what it is. Usually we say initial commit. That's telling...
It's the most useless message of all the messages. Hopefully the rest of them will be better.
But I mean, if
and
you
don't check the install box.
Avoid the install box.
Fear the
Please,
install box.
please, David.
Um,
Positives.
Initial commit is good to know if you need to you want to start all over. If you just made some changes and you need to go back, that's what it is. And all you do is hit commit. And we're going to get our confirmation message. Hopefully. So where have we gone in the documentation? Well, that's run. So we've gotten to here, and we're going to tap this button. Great. It worked. It's published. It's everything we've ever wanted. However, we have to change one more thing. So instead of seeing DocAssembly, or what do we call it, DocAssembly here, I see my GitHub username, and it's because it's still in my house. I want to move it to the Suffolk Lit Lab house. And so we do that by, what do we do? We have to transfer it. I go into settings.
Settings.
Yeah, okay.
Bottom.
And then, so you tap settings from here, you go all the way to the bottom into the danger zone. And we want to transfer ownership. And I think it's Suffolk. Is that it? Let's double check.
Yeah,
That
nice.
is it.
Yeah?
Yep.
That is it, yeah.
And then this is like a security confirmation. You just copy and paste the name of your repo. And if you get it right, and don't.
You have an extra space at the end. It's very strict about that.
There we go. No spaces. Then we get to transfer it. I'm going to put in my password. Oops.
And you'll only be able to do that if you're part of the organization. I think everyone's been added, but if
Is
you,
it DocAssembly line or is it the law? I guess it's not the.
no, it's the assembly line.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
And everybody should be a member. So if you're not, you can just message me on Teams, because this will give everyone, your teammates, the ability to pull and make edits and work as a team. So now I no longer own it. So if I come back to my playground and I go publish on GitHub, reopen it, we see Suffolk Lit Lab, and they're now the owner of this. And it will be with all of our other amazing repos of work. And you will have your package in a safe place. It'll be connected and you'll be good to go.
And you'll still be able to edit it. I don't remember, do we still have to get other people to get access? Like, do you, David, have to go in and say, give the team access to this, or is it automated at this point?
I think when Aubrey clicked the give access, it gave them access. The question is whether or not it gave them the full level of permissions. Aubrey can actually check now because she should be the owner. I mean, she should have full permissions when she transferred.
Yeah, but she transferred it, so it's
Yeah.
not whether someone else would have full permission. I can check.
Yeah, but she can look at, since you're there, you can look in settings and you can look at the people. You can look at the
that's
team
true.
and see what their permissions are. Yeah, and so they have read, so you just want to change it to write.
Yeah. And I think that's actually something only admin can do. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think the individuals would be able to do that for their own once it's in Suffolk Lit Lab.
But you can still keep that in mind and ask one of us to do it.
Someone else do it, yes.
Yes. All right. And that is it. Stop my share. I was looking for an event.
Nice.
Cool. Any last minute questions?
Yeah, so there's no need for
Well,
us
not
to
last
Yeah.
minute. We still
Well,
have time.
with time, but
right, but there is no need for us to fill the time. So if there are no longer any questions, then we'll stop. But my suspicion is that your questions right now are very tentative and small because you're starting off. But over time, you will find you will have some question, and it will take up one person's question will take up the entire Teaching Tuesday, and that's fine. That's what this space is for. But don't feel like you only can ask those questions here. You can also ask questions. It's just that this is a time when we have carved out. You can ask questions, and you should ask questions anytime you run into them on the Teams channels.
yes. Is everybody
coding help channel.
Yeah, is everybody in the coding help channel know where it is? Okay, good.
Is that the channel also where just like once we get to that stage where we've created the repository and transferred ownership or whatever, is that the channel we should use to ask one of the admins to change it to right? Like from
That,
read.
that can be a
Yeah,
good place.
yeah.
Yeah. You just tag and tag someone too. That's usually helpful because the way notifications work in Teams, you don't necessarily see it if it's just thrown into your channel. If you want to immediate action, tag someone. It's a good way.
Not me. I'm
So,
not
you know,
official. So you can tag someone else.
at Colarusso or
Okay.
Lisa's giving the coding help channel an endorsement. She says she's used it and it's a great tool. So thanks, Lisa. Go team. All right. If we have no other questions, no other comments, let everyone get down to it.
And then just one more thing to think about, if this space also, it's just because it's time that we're together for longer, this is also where we tend to demo things. So once you have things that are ready to demo, this space is also appropriate for that.
All right.
All right.
Good luck. Godspeed. Have fun.